We're here at the studio interviewing Kenton Chance, a junior student here at Mingchuan University, and he's going to be telling us about his experience in the field of mass communication and his experience as a student too. So, without wasting any time, I would like to give you, Mr. Chance, a chance to briefly introduce yourself and let us and the listeners know that or what have you been doing.
Thank you very much, Kay. In addition to what you said, I've been involved in mass communication, journalism in particular, since 2002. That's when I first received some very basic training from the Searchlight newspaper in St. Vincent. In 2003, after I completed my A-levels, I began working full-time for the Vincentian newspaper. I worked 3 years for that company, and also during that time, I worked as a correspondent for the Caribbean Media Corporation and Caribbean Net News in the Caribbean area. In 2006, I quit my job and I decided to come here to Taiwan to pursue my undergraduate studies.
And if I may ask you one question, before starting working at St. Vincent, had you before had any previous experience studying towards that field that you were involved in?
In journalism, not really. What I had was some very basic training. It was provided by the Searchlight newspaper. It involved training all day on Saturday, on Friday evenings after school for about 5 weeks. So that was essentially all the training that I had in journalism. Also, I did some online courses, but that is after I began working as a journalist.
Okay. So if I may ask you again, what has been the biggest or the most memorable moments either in your working life or as a student life regarding the subject, mass communication?
Oh, that's a really tough question. I can't really think now of any moment that maybe I would offer this. I can remember there was one incident in which a principal of a school in St. Vincent had died. Her name was Sister Pat, and I went to the school the following Monday because she died on a Friday. And that day I took a picture of one of the students who was crying, and the picture was published on the front page of the newspaper. And then I came to Taiwan, and I understand that a lawyer had seen the picture, and he was so moved by the photograph that he decided to take a full page advertorial in the newspaper to talk about that photograph. I think what I captured in that photograph, it told the essence of what the student and maybe a lot of other people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines were feeling. So I think if there's one moment, it would probably be that.
Okay. Another question is, now that you have done something or some things back home, and then now you've gathered some more experience and expertise, in what way do you intend to contribute when you go back to the St. Vincent?
As a journalist, I see my role as one of being like an educator, and I think that it is my responsibility to give people the information that they need to make informed choices, whether they regard politics, economics, religion, whatever it might be. And I see myself as trying my best to practice that, to help people in that regard. Also, one of the most important things that I think a journalist need to keep in mind is the fact that because of your profession, it puts you in a position where you have access to people that John Public does not. And you need to use that access to find out the information that John Public would like to know. So if you're interviewing the Prime Minister, you need to ask yourself, what is it that John Public would have asked the Prime Minister if he was interviewing the Prime Minister? And then try to get that information and give that information to the public so that the public can act on it however the public chooses.
Okay. And since mass communication is a broad working area, did you as a student or as a worker find any new hobbies related to the field?
Any new hobbies?
Yeah.
Well, initially my interest was in journalism and newspaper journalism, but lately I've been developing an interest in internet journalism, and I'm pretty much interested in internet journalism because it is rather instantaneous. I'm a blogger. I have a news blog. I'm interested also in the use of multimedia elements to tell my stories. I'm also interested in radio production, but I'm not sure if I want to do the kind of radio that we have at home in St. Vincent, because a lot of it is talk and idle talk. So I'm not sure how interested I am in that kind of radio. Maybe the kind of radio that the BBC produces. I can see myself working in that kind of area.
well, dealing with the news mostly instead of like,
Well, not just news, but current affairs, but on a more serious level. Because
yeah,
in St. Vincent, I think that talk radio is probably more entertaining, and serious issues are discussed in a rather entertaining way. And I'm not really too interested in that. Of course, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. I'm
true,
just saying
true.
that that is not my style.
Yeah. Well, okay. I understand that one. And another question is that if you were to interview anybody, dead or alive, who would it be, and what would you like to ask them if it was just one question?
To be honest with you, Kay, I don't have any of those fanciful dreams in my head. I get up every day and I try to, I look at the society in which I live and I try to see if the issues that I think might be important, of interest to my readers, and then I try to find those. I'm not the kind of person who say, well, I would like to interview Barack Obama because he's the president. It's
Mm-hmm.
not everybody who's interested in that. While
True.
while a journalist might be killing himself to interview Barack Obama, he might ignore the everyday issues that affect people. Every morning they get up, maybe, and forgive me for speaking in maybe a more insular way, but I can't help but think of my home country. Somebody
Yeah.
might be
Yeah.
thinking about the road that needs fixing,
Yeah.
or
True.
some problem that he or she might have with some infrastructure, or something in something that is more immediate than my trying to interview the prime minister or the president that every other journalist is trying to do.
All right. All right. All right. So to like up and coming mass communication students who haven't really had the chance, to be in the field, have that experience, what would you, in your own words, like, what kind of advice would you give to that person who still wants to go out there? What is the thing that you think they should look for and try not to do, like avoid doing this and that?
But a degree in any communications field, it's an opportunity to be in the public eye.
True.
But I think that should be like an aside. You should not get involved in mass communication just because you want to be seen, just because you want to be known. You should get involved in mass communication, especially in the journalistic elements, because you want to serve people. Like I made a video last week for one of my classes,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things I said is that if you want to get rich, you don't become a journalist. But if
Yeah.
you want to serve people, it is a very good way to do that. As a journalist, there's a lot of benefits that comes with that, the respect, the popularity and all of that. But
Yeah.
journalism is more than that. Mass communication is more than that. Mass communication is about people, and it's about empowering people. So if you're interested in empowering people, then get involved in mass communication. But if you're only interested in fame and fortune, then I think maybe you might want to really consider something else, especially in the journalistic elements. Maybe if you
Mm-hmm.
want fame and fortune, you can get into acting, which is communication anyways.
Yeah.
But for me, I think you should enter a communications career with a high level of humility.
Yeah. Having have thought about it, and like having have decided your direction. Is that what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Because like you're saying, there's somebody has to do it. There's those who are in the field, well, for the glamour and glitz of it, but there's those that really, really want to do good for the public.
The problem I think is that if you go into a communications degree because a communications career because you want to get popular, you would lose sight of what is important in your attempt to be popular. Then you disregard your responsibilities, because mass communication is not just a career, it's not just a degree. It is a social service, and that's the difference between the media and a lot of other businesses. You have a responsibility, you have it's like a social contract. A lot of businesses, if you want to sell food, you just go out and you sell food. You don't care how your food might make people unhealthy, make them obese or what have you. But when you're involved in mass communication, when you're involved in journalism, then you have to think how this information and the way I package it, how is it going to benefit people, how it is going to affect the way that they think.
All right. Spoken like a true wise man there. It's still Mr. Kenton Chance. Thanks, Mr. Chance, for your time, for coming to the studio, explaining to us what's your understanding of the whole thing, what you've been through. We hope we can talk to you again.
Thank you very much, Kay, for having me.